The twin suns bathed the domed spires of Elindra Prime in golden light, casting long shadows over its marble plazas and crystalline towers. In the still air, a hush hung over the capital, a silence that had come to define peace, progress, and 1,000 years without war. The Elindrans believed themselves timeless, the custodians of order in a galaxy that once knew only chaos. They had conquered hunger, disease, even death for many, but for all their wisdom, they had not conquered pride. High Elder Kale stood beneath the rooted spire, a living monument whose branches reached both skyward and deep into the planet's core. He pressed his palm to the pulsing bark. It thrummed with memory. From within the roots, the planet whispered the patterns of things to come. Again came a voice behind him, sharp, youthful, impatient. Kale turned. High Chancellor Reniv strode forward in his sleek, dark robes, a delegation of junior counselors trailing him like loyal shadows. They were all younger, bred in the post-reckoning era, taught that the old stories were metaphors, not warnings. They saw prophecy as poetic tradition, comforting, not binding. You summon the council with riddles of ruin, Reniv continued, when our scans report nothing. Not a fleet, not a signal, not even a shadow. Kale studied the younger man's eyes, searching for flicker of doubt he knew was buried there. But Reniv had learned to mask it well. He had to. Elindra needed certainty, not ghosts. They move in silence, Kale said, voice even. Iron minds cloaked in flesh. A species we chose not to watch, for we thought them beneath us. Reniv folded his arms. You speak of the humans. They call themselves that, yes, Kale replied, but the old stars called them the flame-tongued. Their words burn through peace. Their tools unravel time. A ripple of polite laughter stirred behind Reniv. One counselor whispered, fairy tales. Another added, let them burn themselves out. They always do. Kale turned away from the spire. And if they do not, if they have learned to wield fire without being consumed. The laughter faltered. Let us pretend, Kale continued, now addressing the circle, that your scans are correct. No fleet, no signals. Still, I ask, who among you has seen Terra in the last 50 cycles? Who among you has spoken to a Terran mind, read their thoughts, followed their evolution? No answer came. I have, Kale said, his voice a solemn drumbeat. I have touched their growing tide in dreams. I have seen their cities, metal lungs devouring continents. I have felt their rage, a species wounded by its own gods, climbing from ashes with teeth bared. They are coming, Reniv, not in anger, in hunger. They do not hate us. They simply want what we have. Reniv raised a hand, silencing any rebuttal. Elder Kale, I respect your years, your service. But our people need guidance grounded in reality, not visions born asleep. You've been wrong before. Kale's face did not flinch. And yet I still speak. The Chancellor turned to leave. Then let history remember your warnings, even as we continue our work. The stars need us, not our fears. As the delegation dispersed, Kale remained alone beneath the spire. A low wind stirred the leaves overhead, and with it came a distant whisper not from Elindra, but beyond. They have pierced the veil. He closed his eyes. Too soon. Across the void, the Terran scout vessel Sundiver hovered in the shadow of a dying star. Its captain, Lyra Chun, stared at the holographic projection of an ancient beacon, Elindran script flowing like river water across its cracked shell. Run it again, she ordered. Her AI flickered to life. Translation at 92%. Warning detected. Interference minimal. Estimated age, 11,000 years. The ship's XO leaned forward. Warning? Of what? Chin read aloud from the display, her voice hesitant. To those who find this, beware the world of peace. It fears you not out of arrogance, but because it knows what you will become. The XO looked up. What does that mean? Chin didn't answer. Instead, she turned to the window, eyes fixed on a glimmering point in the black. Elindra Prime. Just visible now, like a pearl wrapped in firelight. They've known about us, she murmured. Ma'am. She straightened. Give me EarthGov command. We're not alone out here. Kale knelt before the sacred pool that night, his robe soaked in ritual ink, his breath shallow with age. Around him, the visions stirred again, visions he had tried to bury. He saw Elendron towers collapse into dust. He saw ships like daggers cutting through the clouds. He heard the silence of a world where no bird sang. And then he saw her, a woman, not Elendron, not like the others. She stood on the bridge of a Terran ship, her hands clenched behind her back, her gaze steady. Her name pulsed through the vision, Lyra Chun. She was not the destroyer. She was a signal. When Kale awoke, he understood. The war had not begun. It had already been lost. And yet from the ashes of fate, a single thread remained. Hope, tenuous, distant, but alive. Kale rose, robes dripping, the ink pooling like shadow at his feet. He had one final message to deliver, not to the council, not to Reniv, to the stars, to anyone who would listen, before it was too late. The Earth that once argued over borders, creeds, and currencies no longer existed. In its place stood EarthGov, a unified authority forged not by diplomacy, but necessity. The planet had faced ecological collapse, decades of orbital conflict, and near annihilation during the AI Reformation. Yet, through these trials, humanity did not break. It evolved. Supreme Commander Volok sat in his observation chamber aboard the dreadnought Justicar, watching the elliptical rotation of a red dwarf sun beyond the glass. The light cast his face in flickering hues, alternating between blood and ash. He was not a man given to reflection, but this moment called for it. Their path was narrowing. Every new expansion brought them closer to Elendron space. "Show me the extrapolation again," he ordered. A data sphere expanded before him. EarthGov's frontier territories marked in blue, Elendron protectorates in green. The overlap was minimal, but growing, tiny fractures forming along once-ignored sectors. The AI, housed in the ship's neural core, responded with its usual clip neutrality. Current expansion rate will place us in contested sectors within 9 cycles. Elendron response patterns remain non-aggressive, but probes suggest increased observational traffic. Increased how? Volok asked. 4 new Scout-class bioships detected along the Nevera corridor. Passive scans only. No aggression logged. "They're watching," he said quietly, still pretending they don't fear us. "They fear what they cannot control," came a new voice. Captain Lyra Chin stepped into the chamber, her presence deliberate but unassuming. She carried a datapad under one arm and the weight of hard-earned scars in her posture. Volok studied her carefully. She had made first contact with the Elendron Relay Node 5 months prior and returned not with answers, but questions that haunted high command. "Sit," he said. She did, laying the datapad between them. "I've gone over the beacon again. Every time I read it, the intent becomes clearer. It wasn't a warning for us. It was for others about us." Volok's brow furrowed. "Explain." "It's as if the Elendrons left a message not to confront us directly, not out of fear of losing, but out of fear they might have to become like us to survive. They've seen our trajectory, our hunger, maybe even our inevitability." "I don't believe in destiny," Volok replied. "I don't either," she said, "but I believe in patterns." She tapped the datapad. A new projection flickered to life. Human expansion models overlaying ancient Elendron space charts. The resemblance was uncanny. Conquest mirrored in the stars, like echoes of an empire that had never known restraint. "They'll act," Chin said. "Eventually, or we'll force them to." Volok stood. "Then we need to move first. Not with fire, but with certainty. Let them see us not as beasts, but as architects." Chen's mouth tightened. "That will depend on which face we choose to show them." His silence was answer enough. Elsewhere, on the neutral moon of Veltari, 2 figures met in secret. One Elendron, one human. Both unauthorized, both risking their lives. Saren Vel, an Elendron xenodiplomat dismissed from the Council for Radical Ideas, approached cautiously. Her robes were plain, her posture reserved. Across the table sat Commander Asher Day, a human intelligence officer known more for extraction missions than dialogue. "Do they know you're here?" Saren asked. "Does it matter?" Day replied, his voice rough from a throat rebuilt in orbit after a failed vacuum breach. She hesitated. We used to think humans were children. Primitive. Temporary. But you aren't children. No, he said. We just never forgot how to want. And what is it you want now? Day's expression flickered. Something like pity, or perhaps just weariness. The stars. But not just for us. For our survival. You have peace because you started from unity. We started from ruin. Saren looked past him, through the frost-ringed viewport to the planet below. Kale warned them, decades ago. He saw it. Not just your rise, but what would cost us to ignore it. He was right, Day said, but that doesn't make us villains. Just inevitable. The word hung between them like a blade. Back on Alinder Prime, Chancellor Reniv watched the latest probe images with an unreadable expression. The humans had constructed a new orbital facility in Sector X-9, officially outside any agreed-upon boundary, but unmistakably provocative. His aide hovered beside him. Shall I draft a formal protest? Reniv didn't respond immediately. He was remembering Kale's last address to the council, how the Elder had described the humans not as monsters, but as a mirror. No, he said finally. They are testing us. Let them. Sir, he turned. We do nothing. Yet. The aide blinked. But I said yet. Reniv's gaze returned to the images. What concerned him wasn't the station itself. It was what it implied. The humans were no longer expanding randomly. Their movements were coordinated, almost predictive, and they were learning. The illusion of Alindran superiority was beginning to crumble. For the first time in centuries, Reniv felt the sharp sting of uncertainty. Not fear, at least not yet, but something colder. Respect. On Earth, in the subterranean chambers of the Strategium, a new proposal was being reviewed. Project Assimila. The goal was simple: preemptive integration of alien cultures through psychological, economic, and mimetic warfare. Combat without weapons. Conquest by culture. Victory is no longer about who fires first, declared the lead architect. It's about who shapes the story. Lyra Chun sat in the back of the chamber, listening. She had seen the ruins left behind on once unknown worlds. She had seen the flicker of stars snuffed out by war, and the look in Volok's eyes as he stood before the maps of conquest. We don't hate them, she thought, but we will break them just the same. Later that night, she recorded a message. To the leaders of Alinder Prime, I do not send this in defiance. I send it in warning. We are not your past. We are your future. The sooner you understand that, the less this will hurt. She hesitated before adding the final line. Because once we decide to move, nothing you believe will survive the meeting. She sent the transmission into deep space, encrypted, encoded, designed to reach only the highest levels of Alindran command. She doubted they would respond, but they would listen. They had to, even if it was already too late. The message from Lyra Chin reached Alinder Prime during the hour of mists, when the city domes refracted the morning light into colors never seen by human eyes. Inside the high chamber, Chancellor Reniv read the transmission with a stoicism born of training, but behind his narrowed gaze, something cracked. Not the message's tone, defiant, measured, almost courteous, but the certainty beneath it. The humans no longer sought understanding. They sought position. They no longer questioned their place in the galaxy. They were claiming it. The council gathered in full for the first time in half a cycle. Not even Kale's final warning had prompted such urgency. The chamber pulsed with soft light, echoing heartbeats from the living stone beneath. Though Reniv presided at the center, the true gravity came from the elders seated in the rear, their minds connected directly to the planet's root memory. Elder Vera, voice aged and ageless, spoke first. They have spoken, not in hatred, in inevitability. They assume victory, Counselor Sod hissed, because we have shown restraint. They assume it, Vera replied, because we have never denied it. Reniv stood, his dark robes cutting a silhouette against the halo of the chamber light. This is not the moment to debate who is right. This is the moment to decide if we intend to remain. Whispers circled the chamber like storm winds. Remain, a word that to the Alyndrans, carried more than geographical meaning. It meant identity, relevance, existence. The humans are not gods, Sod snapped. No, said Vera, but they have learned to behave like them. Reniv gestured, and a new projection shimmered in the air, a Terran expansion forecast. Systems turning blue, worlds assimilated without battle, populations choosing humanity because humanity offered velocity. They conquer with stories, he said, with systems, with hunger that pretends to be order. And we, added Vera, have only silence and distance. Outside the chamber, in a private archive buried beneath the mountain capital of Solendare, a young Alyndran named Thalen studied a forgotten record. He was not council-born, nor of noble spire lineage. He had found his way to knowledge by defiance. His mentors had dismissed his curiosity as regressive, but it was not the future that fascinated him. It was the echoes of what had already been lost. On the stone tablet before him, etched in codes older than Alyndran cities, was a phrase he had come to fear more than any prophecy. The end will not arrive with war. It will arrive with wonder. Thalen knew what the humans were doing. He had seen it in recovered Terran media, in the broadcast captured through the relay ghost nets. Their art wasn't propaganda. It was invasion through imagination. They exported identity, seeded dreams in the minds of conquered and willing alike. He activated a hidden channel and began composing a message, not to the council, to one person. Elder Kale, if you still breathe, this is Thalen of the Dust School. I have found the forgotten mechanism, the one that carries thought across cultures. It is not weapon or law. It is myth, and the humans are masters of it. He hesitated, then added, we have no defenses for dreams. Not anymore. In orbit above the Alyndran moon of Sarah, the Justicar held position. A fleet of Terran vanguard ships had joined it, each one armed, not only with weaponry, but with terraforming pods, culture archives, and diplomatic containment modules. Commander Volek studied the latest Alyndran response, or rather, the absence of one. No fleet, no rejection, no counter-threat. The AI noted, their silence is strategic. It always was, Volek muttered. Lyrichin stood nearby, arms folded, watching the holographic representation of Alyndra Prime rotate slowly. They're not going to answer. They don't need to, Volek replied. Their delay tells us everything. They're fractured. She looked at him, voice low. Or, they're building something we can't see. Volek nodded. Then it's time we force clarity. Orders were issued. A diplomatic envoy, lightly escorted, would descend to the neutral zone within Alyndran space. Not to threaten, to request a summit. But Volek knew better. Diplomacy was never neutral. It was theater with consequence. Thalen intercepted the transmission before it reached the council. He decrypted it, parsed the language, and understood what it really was, a line in the sand drawn with velvet gloves. He made his way to the abandoned shrine of echo memory, where few Alyndrans now tread. There, he summoned the vision seed Kale had left behind, an imprint of thought stored in living matter. The Elder's likeness formed in the mist. They are coming, Thalen said. Kale's voice echoed. Yes. And we are not ready. No, came the calm reply. What do we do? Kale's visage leaned closer, eyes solemn. We tell them a new story. Thalen didn't understand, not at first. But as he sat alone beneath the shrine's glowing root canopy, he began to see it. The humans were rewriting the stars by offering purpose, not by destroying civilizations, but by absorbing them. And the only way to counter a story was not with resistance, but with a better one. On Earth, within the core chamber of the Strategic Cultural Bureau, the data from Alyndra's silence came through. They didn't intercept our envoy, one analyst noted. Didn't respond. Didn't even scan. Lyra Chin narrowed her eyes. They're choosing the terms. They're writing the setting. What does that mean? Someone asked. It means we're in their theater now. Asher Day, called in from his post in the outer rings, joined her later that night. Over a quiet drink in the black glass observation deck, he asked her a question no one else had dared. If it comes to it, if we break them, will we still know what makes us human? Chen looked at him for a long time, then simply said, "Maybe that's the wrong question. What would be the right one?" "Will we care?" The Linden reply arrived 3 days later. Not in speech. Not in fleet. A single object entered Terran space, a construct of light and organic crystal, bearing no weapons. Inside was a single phrase, etched in a dozen languages, human and otherwise. "The stars are not yours to hold, but if you would share them, come and listen." It wasn't surrender. It wasn't defiance. It was an invitation. The summit was held on the neutral world of Holith, a place neither Elendran nor human, marked only by time and starlight. Its surface was a frozen plain of pale stone, cracked and veined with glowing minerals that pulsed with geothermal rhythm. No cities, no weapons, only a single dome at its equator, translucent, silent, waiting. Inside that dome, the meeting chamber was circular, its walls composed of shifting fractal patterns that responded to thought. The air smelled of ozone and bioluminescence. Each faction sent 5 delegates. None wore rank. No weapons were permitted. The only armor allowed was language. Lyra Chen entered first on behalf of EarthGov. Her hair was tied back in a braid that recalled her mother's traditions, though she barely remembered the stories behind it. She carried with her a tablet and a mind sharpened by history. The Elendrans entered silently, tall, fluid in their movement, eyes like polished obsidian. Thalen was among them, the youngest by decades, but the one who carried the voice of the elders. He wore no robes, just a simple tunic of woven starlight, gifted by the shrine of echo memory. They regarded each other with neither animosity nor warmth, only recognition. "We meet not to plead," Thalen said first, "but to be understood." Chen responded evenly. "Understanding only matters if it leads to consequence." Thalen inclined his head. "Then let us be consequential." For hours they spoke, not of treaties or territory, but of timelines, of what had come before and what might follow. Thalen described the Elendran retreat from the center of the galaxy, not as defeat, but as choice, a deliberate refusal to shape others in their image. "We were builders once," he said, "then watchers, then myths. You're still builders, but without pause." "We paused for centuries," Chen replied, "and every time we did, something tried to erase us." "It's not erasure to stand still. It is," she said, "if someone else keeps moving." Their words rippled through the room, triggering patterns on the walls. Brief flashes of memory. Collapsed cities, children under alien suns, ships breaking light speed on waves of war. No one interrupted. No one shouted. This was not that kind of war. Asher Day, seated just behind Chun, leaned forward at one point. "You say we hunger too much. But what are you offering in return for restraint? Silence? A slower death?" Vera, the Elendran elder who had arrived midway through the summit, looked at him with eyes that had seen empires burn. "We offer the alternative to conquest. Coherence. A universe that doesn't collapse under constant acceleration. But coherence without motion becomes stagnation," Day said. "You retreated. We advanced. This is not a question of who is right. It's a question of who will survive." "Survival is not supremacy," Vera whispered. "It is stewardship." The chamber dimmed, and then Thalen did something no Elendran had done in centuries. He produced a story. It was a memory seed activated from his chest like a second heart. The walls bloomed with images, colors, sensations that went beyond language. The humans felt it as pressure in their skulls, a grief that hovered just beyond comprehension. A civilization long ago, Elendrans building, shaping, growing, and then stopping. Not because they couldn't continue, but because the cost of dominance had become too high. "We were you," Thalen said, "once. And now?" Chen asked, her voice strained by the memory's echo. "Now we warn." The silence that followed was longer than protocol allowed, but no one enforced it. The chamber had become a cathedral of consequence. Outside, the stars turned uncaring. Chen rose from her seat. "You fear us because you think we'll become what you were." "No," said Thalen. "We fear you because you might go further." She considered that deeply. Her training told her to pivot. reframe, regain advantage. But something beneath the surface, perhaps that stubborn human instinct for change, made her hesitate. "What do you propose?" she finally asked. "Join us," Thalen said. "Not as subjects, not as rulers, as balance." The words struck harder than any declaration of war. They required something more dangerous than submission. Transformation. EarthGov had never truly been asked to become something with another power, only to absorb or be absorbed. Chun turned to Volok's proxy on her team. He gave the slightest nod. No command, just acknowledgement. Back on Earth, Volok reviewed the summit data with unflinching calculation. He had expected resistance. He had prepared for manipulation. He had not expected invitation. The AI analyzed the probability outcomes. Strategic integration would reduce likelihood of galactic conflict by 73%, but projected cultural dilution is also significant. Volok walked to the viewport, watching a Terran moon rise above the blue-black horizon. Then we must learn to integrate without losing the engine of who we are. Is that possible? He didn't answer. He didn't know. On Alindra Prime, Thalen stood beneath the root canopy one final time. The shrine flickered gently as he updated the echo memory. His words were calm, but the air around him hummed with potential. Contact has been made. They are not what we feared. They are what we warned. And yet they listened. Behind him, Elder Vera smiled. Barely. Perhaps that is enough. Perhaps. On Holith, the delegation dome emptied slowly. No treaties were signed. No alliances declared. But something older had been agreed upon. A pause. A beginning. A shift. Asher Day watched Chin from a distance as she packed away the final documents. "Do you think this changes anything?" he asked. "Yes," she said. "But not quickly. Not yet. What happens now?" She looked up at the sky, no longer conquered, but shared. "Now," she said, "we wait to see if a new story can survive being told by both sides."